The first mistake I made was trusting they'd treat my sacrifice like a blessing, not a bank loan. But some folks, they only see your kindness as a test drive for how much more of you they can take. It was a Sunday when they came asking, not a Monday when rent sits heavy on your chest, not a Friday when checks stretch thin across groceries and overdue bills. A Sunday, the day people sing hymns with mouths still full of lies. "Mama Ora," my niece Brittany said, standing in my kitchen like her shoes paid the mortgage. "We just need a lil bit. We swear we gon' give it back first of the month, no hesitation." And her boyfriend? Lionel, with them two big jeans and a smile too slick for someone who didn't have a job to match it, he nodded like his word paid rent on conviction. I stood where I always stand when somebody comes needing, right by my stove, by the pot still warm from greens and beans that I didn't make for guests. I hadn't even sat down to eat yet. My cornbread was cooling, and here they go, serving me stress before I could bless my food. "How much is a lil bit supposed to mean?" I asked. Brittany gave me that soft-tongued, baby-voiced performance she turns on when she wants to rewind time to, before bills and broken decisions made her life look like a bootleg version of stability. "Just 700, she said shyly. "We ain't asking for 1,000 or nothing crazy." I blinked slow. $700 is not the Lord's version of light. She laughed, "That empty kind." "I mean, we wouldn't ask no one else. You're the only one who's steady, Auntie." That's what they always say, don't they? The only one who's steady, like steadiness is immunity from being taken for granted. Now, I ain't rich. I don't flash money. If my car makes it up the hill without choking, I whisper thank you. My roof leaks in 2 places, my water bill sings louder than the choir on Sundays, and I got just enough to sleep without counting quarters on a good month. But I just set aside my rent, paid the light, paid the phone. The rest? That was to keep me in this house through the next turn of the calendar. They wanted it all. And the hardest part? I loved Brittany like the baby Joylene didn't get to raise. When her mother left town chasing gigs and ghosts, I raised her on my porch, told her stories, braided her hair, helped her with math she swore was cursed, fed her when she chose the wrong boys and forgot to feed herself. So when she stood in front of me, eyes glassy and hopeful, I remembered 10-year-old Brittany who used to cry when the streetlights came on and her mama hadn't called. So yes, I gave it to her. All 720 that sat between me and eviction. "Don't make me regret this," I said. "You bring this back on the first like rent lives in your spirit." She nodded, swore, cried even, hugged me like salvation, promised again. The first of the month came. No call, no knock, no payment. I didn't panic. I gave it 3 days grace, like God does with people pretending they forgot their prayers. Then I texted. No reply. Called. Voicemail with that same chirpy tone Brittany uses right before lying to your face. I called Lionel. His phone was disconnected or no longer in service. I wrote a message clear enough to shake guilt. "I gave you my rent money. No judgment. Just bring it like you promised." Read. No reply. A week passed. Then 2. By the time the eviction notice hit my door, I knew what shame disguised as silence felt like. I sat at the table with a paper that told me politely I had 2 weeks to fix what my heart gave away. And you want to know the worst part? I saw her, Brittany, at the Walgreens parking lot, laughing, wearing new sneakers I didn't buy, with nails that cost more than apologies. She spotted me across the lot, froze for 1 second, then waved like nothing happened. Like I hadn't sacrificed stability for her sob story. Like I hadn't lit candles hoping grace would get me through the month. Like my kindness was disposable and now expired. Something in me snapped, not violently, but loud. I walked across that lot like her name was printed on a debt notice in heaven. She tried to duck into the car, not fast enough. "Hey," I said, calm as a simmer. She turned. "Hey, Auntie." No shame in her face, just socially programmed greeting. I looked at her nails, her lashes, her stance. "You forgot something," I said. Her face twitched. "What you mean?" "My rent money," I replied, flat, stoic, holy. "Auntie, I told you, things got crazy this month." "That don't make you forget a promise." Silence. I saw it then, that flicker behind her eyes where guilt hides before pride shuts it up. It's not that serious. We figured you was good." And there it was. The sentence that clarified the devil's comfort. We figured you was good. See, to them, I wasn't a person. I was a resource, the sturdy one. The fallback, the emotional ATM that never runs out of patience. So I smiled, not wide, just enough to place a holy pause between us. I'm not mad you needed help, Brittany, that happens. Long pause. I'm mad you took it, and then chose silence instead of honor. She blinked like that word hadn't been heard since church. Honor. I didn't curse, didn't bawl, didn't shout. I just tapped her car window with 2 fingers. A slow rhythm that sounded a lot like, "Fix it before your story sours worse." She didn't say nothing, just got in the car and closed the door, and drove away with more weight on her conscience than she came with. I went home and turned my porch light off that night, because sometimes hope needs to rest, because being the strong one comes with sleepless receipts. The thing about not getting your money back ain't the money. It's the message that says you weren't worth remembering, that all your stress, all your grace, all your late-night prayers and early morning negotiations with God didn't add up to a thank you when theirs cleared. I didn't sleep much those next few nights. I was doing mental math in the dark, calculating dignity versus peace, tallying bills versus boundaries, wondering how close I was to calling someone else for help, and hating the idea that I'd have to explain why help was needed in the first place. I kept checking my phone. No missed calls, no texts, not even a "still working on it." But the real twist. 2 weeks later, I get a group text from Brittany about her birthday celebration. A brunch, with bottle service, and balloons shaped like her new age. I stared at the message like it was a glitch in decency. She had the gall to invite me. Me. First name Ora, last name paid your electric bill. Last spring. She even added, "Wear pink, it's gonna be cute." I deleted the message before my blood pressure sent a signal I couldn't ignore. Then I sat down, at that very same table where she sat weeks ago, where she cried, where she sold me humility and borrowed my rent in exchange. I brewed tea, not for calm, for clarity, because I was about to write a letter, not a nasty one, not threats, just the truth. Printed old school, folded, delivered with that wisdom weight. I wrote, "Brittany, when you needed help, I opened my hand. When I needed honor in return, you closed your eyes. I didn't give you money because I had too much. I gave it because you said you were desperate. Now I see you were desperate to dodge responsibility. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm not asking again, I'm owed. You have 10 days. Whether I get my money or not, you won't be seated at a table I cooked for. And no, I won't be at your brunch. Enjoy your balloons." Ora Mae. I walked it myself to her door. Not her mother's house, not her auntie's, hers. Knocked once, loud. Lionel opened the door like guilt had been sleeping on his chest. "Hey, Miss Ora." I handed him the letter without a word. Then I walked away, my walk slow, my heart fast. But what I didn't expect was what happened 2 mornings later. Knock at my door. Not a weak one. I opened it, and there she stood. Hair not done, eyes puffy, not a filter in sight. She held the letter, folded and wrinkled like maybe she kept reading it, hoping for a softer version to appear between the lines. "Auntie," she whispered. I said nothing, just stepped aside, letting her know she could come in. Her conscience, however, would have to sit near the door. She sat at the kitchen table where truth tends to feel heavier. "I didn't realize I made you feel like that." I sat across from her, calm, composed, still silent. She took a breath. "Lionel and I, things been tight. I wasn't trying to disrespect you. We didn't plan right. I thought you'd understand." "I always understand," I said. "That's never been the issue." She blinked. "The issue is you assumed I'd accept ignorance as a substitute for accountability." Pause. She opened her bag, pulled out a pile of folded bills, crumpled, 5s, 10s, 20s. "I've been saving, little by little. Here, it's not everything, but it's $320. I'll bring the rest by the 15th. I took the money and set it aside. "Brittany," I said. She looked up. "You ever read the story of the 10 lepers?" She blinked. Maybe. Jesus healed all 10, but only one came back to say thank you." She nodded. "That one ain't just grateful. He's faithful. The others? They walked off healed on the outside, but still sick in the heart." I leaned forward. "Don't be like them." Tears pooled. "Auntie." I raised my hand to stop her. This ain't about the money anymore. This is about patterns. The way you walk into love like a store with no wallet, expecting a discount 'cause we related. Don't do that again. Not to me, not to no one. She nodded, slowly, then started crying. Soft, real. I'm sorry. I believe you, I said, but I'm watching what you do next. For the next few weeks, she brought the rest $40, $60 at a time. Each time she dropped it off, she stayed longer, talked more, picked up around the house even when I told her I had it. She was ashamed, but also she was growing, and that's worth more than late money. Then 2 Saturdays later, Lionel showed up, not with her, alone, suited, calm, said he wanted to sit down. I let him. He pulled out $100 and slid it across the table. I've been wrong, he said. He went on to tell me he grew up thinking men fix things by ignoring the problem long enough to convince themselves it wasn't that bad. But Brittany, he said quietly, she kept bringing your name up, said she saw you every time she prayed. That got me, because prayers that carry the names of people you wronged, those are real. He asked if I could forgive him, and I told him the same thing I told her. It's not about forgiveness. It's about if the next time you're tempted to repeat the same mess, you pause long enough to carry this moment back into your decision-making. That's what accountability looks like. It ain't clean. It ain't fast. It's not a speech. It's a pattern that shifts. Small choice after small choice. And I watched both of theirs start to change. Not for me, but finally for themselves. Most people think accountability comes with a bow. A wrapped-up apology. A dramatic moment, maybe with tears and gospel in the background. But what I've learned, real change slides in quietly. Like the squeak on a door you stop noticing because one day you just oiled the hinge. Brittany started coming by again, not asking for anything, just being present. She brought over half a peach cobbler one weekend, said she'd tried her grandmama's old recipe. It was lopsided, crust too thick in one corner, but sweet. She didn't flinch when I told her to try a touch less cinnamon next time. She came with a little notebook once too, said she and Lionel were budgeting, for real this time, showed me charts, categories. I didn't say anything, just smiled. Progress didn't always need praise, it just needed not to be punished. One afternoon, she sat on my porch while I watered the plants and said, "You know, Auntie, I thought asking for money would fix my situation, but looking back, I should have asked for help making a plan." That one stopped my hand mid-pour, because she got it. Finally, I nodded, still watering. Money fixes the month. Discipline fixes the year. She smirked. That's going in my notes. I chuckled softly. That ain't mine. I heard it from a woman who had $20 and 6 mouths to feed. It stuck. A few weeks passed. I got my last $40. Cash, crisp, clean bill folded, no confetti celebration. She didn't say some big line, just placed it on my palm like a thank you and a full circle moment. But me? I already knew what I was going to do with it. I stacked that money back into the envelope I had saved for years, the one I kept taped inside my cabinet above the sugar, my rainy day stash that always rained too soon. And I wrote her a note. Brittany, you brought back my rent. But more importantly, you brought back my hope in you. This isn't about paying me back. This is about showing me you can lead your own life now. Take this gift. Put it towards something that brings you peace, not just relief. Love, Ora Mae. I gave it to her the following Sunday, slipped it into her purse after dinner. She didn't notice until she got home. The phone rang around 9:17 p.m. Auntie, she whispered, you gave it back? No, I said, I gave forward. She sniffled into the phone. I don't know what to say. You already said it with your actions, baby. Just keep saying it. But things don't just end wrapped in lesson bows. 2 months after that, Lionel's cousin got locked up. And just like that, it started again. Not with money, with pressure. He needed money for bail, said he didn't have nobody else. And of course, they had just started to breathe again. I watched Brittany teeter for 4 days, heard her cry in the bathroom while Lionel paced the living room whispering on the phone. She came over on the 5th day, sat at the table like someone about to break a promise. Auntie, she started, what do you do when someone's making the same mistake you just got out of? That's a special kind of pain, watching someone you love pick up the same shovel you just threw down. I said, you don't have to carry their hole just because you know how deep it goes. She blinked hard, but it's his people. and you his person. You could hear her heart race in the silence. He's not perfect, she said. Neither are you, I replied, but I watched you look your flaw in the face and walk different. That matters. She exhaled so sharply it shook the ficus near the door. That evening, she told Lionel, we can help find him a lawyer referral, but we're not giving up our savings. I won't go back into that storm again. I wasn't there, but she told me how it played out. Anger, silence, cold shoulders, a few nights on the couch. Then, Lionel came back changed, said he called his uncle for help, found a church contact, started learning what support meant outside of handing over bills you can't afford to lose. It shifted something in him. Truth is, sometimes a boundary forces growth better than comfort ever could. By fall, Brittany had started a little online resale business. She cleaned out closets around town, took donations even from me, and started flipping clothes and shoes. She learned how to polish heels, how to relace sneakers, how to price vintage. She made her first $300 on her own. That same week, she took me to lunch. Paid. Cash. With tip. She grinned. Auntie, your money folds smooth when it's yours. I smiled. That's called earned joy. One day, she looked at me and said, I know I broke something in us when I chose to go silent after you gave me that rent. I think about it all the time. I nodded. You broke my peace, I said, but you didn't break my love. That, you don't get to break. She held my hand across the table. Some tears don't fall down a cheek. They fall into understanding. That winter, we had dinner with real laughter. No shame hiding in the napkins. No secrets stirring under the sweet tea. Lionel made cornbread, terrible dry thing, but I ate it and thanked him anyway. Because our table was full of something we hadn't had in a long time. Respect. That's what betrayal tries to steal first. Money goes, trust twists, but once respect returns, everything grows stronger on top of that. By spring, Brittany had built credit, paid off a card, started talking about moving, not to be fancy, but to be independent. She came to the porch one day, full of new ideas, and paused before going inside. Looked at me and asked, You ever wish you'd said no that day? I didn't even blink. If I said no, baby, I would have missed the story. And hard stories make strong women. She nodded, and you became one. That's the thing. They can make you feel like the problem. They can take your softness and turn it into shame. But the moment you speak truth with stillness, the moment you teach love without alone, that's when you stop being the problem and start being the pattern breaker. Time moved different after that. There was no apology parade, no Instagram story with a veil of healing quotes pasted over a selfie, no big momentous celebration that told the neighborhood Brittany was all grown now and had paid back her debts, financial or emotional. But that wasn't what I needed. What I got was better. Consistency. And that kind of change? It don't trend on the internet, but it transforms lives. Brittany started calling just to check in. Not when she needed something. Not when bills whispered threats from the drawer. Just regular calls. Hey, Auntie, just thinking about you. That first time it happened, I clutched my chest as a joke, like I was about to faint. She laughed from the other end. And we stayed on the phone for 24 minutes talking about nonsense. That was the moment I knew she'd made it back, not just to who she was, but the person she was still becoming. That December, she invited me to a small pop-up shop she rented at a weekend market downtown. Her little resale business had grown. She had tags now, a rack of dresses cleaned and pressed, shoes shined and stuffed just right. She laid out some of my old scarves from the 80s and had priced them at $25. Who's buying that old thing? I asked, puzzled. You'd be surprised, she said, smiling. People want to wear wisdom now. Who? That line? Let me say it again. People want to wear wisdom now. I almost cried in front of a stranger with a shopping bag. Things with Lionel? They got quieter. No scandals, no explosions, just progress. He got himself a steady construction gig, came home on time, started showing up at church on his own, without Brittany dragging him by his shirt collar. He even helped cook for the potluck once, brought baked beans full of intention and over-seasoned with apology. He was trying, and I saw it, not just in his hours but in his habits. That man once rolled his eyes when I talked about checking mail on time. Now he pays the electric a day early and offers rides to folks at the halfway house. Redemption don't always show up in Bible study. Sometimes it shows up when a sorry man starts showing up before he's asked to. That spring, Brittany's cousin Tasha got into a little bind. Needed a few hundred? Waited until the family cookout to bring it up. Waited until the ribs were gone and the music was just loud enough that asking felt camouflaged. Tasha played it slick, startin' with old memories, slippin' in kindness like butter in cornbread batter. Then, the ask, "Auntie, could maybe you help me out just a little?" I wouldn't ask unless it was urgent. Brittany looked at me, waiting to see what I would do. I smiled. A kind smile, the kind with bones in it. "Tasha," I said. Wasn't long ago I handed out money I didn't have and got silence instead of gratitude back in return. My house may be small, but my lessons come big. So I'm sorry, baby. I can make you a to-go plate, but loans are off the menu. Tasha blinked like I handed her a math test at a funeral. "Auntie, you know you can trust me," she started. And Brittany, Lord bless her, cut in. Brittany called me at 12:07 a.m., just minutes after midnight. "Happy New Year, Auntie," she said. I could hear Lionel in the background, shouting something about bringing in the new with love and cornbread. But Brittany's voice, it was calm, that grown kind of calm that doesn't need to scream, "I'm different now," because you can hear it already. She told me she'd turned down a credit card offer because she didn't want to slow down the progress she'd worked for. "I want to buy something when I've earned it," she said, "not just because it's on sale." That may sound small to some, but for her, that was a revelation. I told her, "Pride don't come from what's in your hands, baby. It comes from knowing you built it without robbing your future to prove it." She said she'd write that one down too. Then we laughed. It was the first New Year in a long time that didn't feel heavy. Not because everything was perfect, but because nobody owed each other what they couldn't pay with peace. By March, word had spread. Not about Brittany's old mistakes. Those faded. People love gossip, but that kind of fire runs out of fuel once the story stops throwing sparks. No, what people started talking about was how Brittany helped 2 other girls launch their own booths at the weekend market. Tasha, yes, that Tasha, was one of them. And let me tell you, if there was ever a moment God said, "Watch me work," it was that Saturday. I went to the market just to look. Didn't tell anyone I was coming. Wore my sun hat tilted low and my walking shoes. I browsed homemade candles, vintage jewelry, crochet hats, the kind that itch a little but are made with love. And then I turned the corner. There stood Tasha, selling repackaged beauty products with handmade labels. And beside her, Brittany, not competing, not leading, just standing near, like a quiet witness to full circle moments. I walked up. Tasha's eyes nearly popped out her head. She stumbled over a greeting, fumbling with a paper bag. But I met her right where she'd left me, with grace. "Tasha," I said, "this your business?" She nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "It's real cute," I told her. "And real grown of you." She smiled, crooked but honest. "Thank you, Auntie." I didn't stay long, just long enough to let the message land. "I see you. You didn't pay me back in money, but you paid me back in growth. Sometimes that's enough." A few weeks later, I hosted a porch talk. Now, what's a porch talk? Just me, the swing, iced tea, and whoever shows up with something tangled in their heart. I don't claim to have every answer, but I do listen real good. This time, 7 girls showed up, all different ages. One had a baby in her arms, one was starting college. All of them carried that same look, that silent scream behind proud eyes. I'm holding more than I know how to carry. We talked about giving too much, giving too fast, and forgetting their own names while trying to rescue folks who wouldn't even write them a thank you note afterward. One girl asked, "How do I stop loaning time, money, myself, to people who only show up when they're needy?" I said, "When you realize that emotional bankruptcy feels worse than financial debt." They nodded. One girl cried. It wasn't therapy, but it was healing. And porch air has a way of softening truths we resist hearing inside. Later that night, after they all left, I sat in silence. My tea gone warm, my creaky swing whispering old prayers. I thought about that first envelope. Those $720 that almost cost me both a roof and a relationship. And I smiled, not because it didn't hurt, but because it birthed something. Pain that plants recovery is still holy. A few months later, Brittany called again. Said she wanted to take a trip, just her and me. We hadn't done that since she was a child, and I took her to see the ocean for the first time. This time it was the mountains. Just a 2-day getaway. We packed light, talked deep, laughed freely. She told me things she never had before. Fears I didn't know she carried. Dreams she hadn't dared speak out loud without permission. And one night, under stars with nothing but frogs for company, she stared into the fire pit and said, "I almost drowned you with my mistakes." I turned to her, slow, steady. "You did," I said. "But baby, I know how to swim. That ain't your fault. That's just how life teaches us both." She cried, hard, with her whole chest, and I held her like it was the last time I ever would. Because moments like that, they don't happen on schedule. You just hope you live long enough to witness them when they come. I whispered to her, "You were worth saving even when you weren't asking to be." And she whispered back, "And you were the reason I didn't sink." If you would have told me a year earlier that this story would end in forgiveness, healing, and little tables full of lip gloss and second chances, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's the thing about storms. They never announce what's waiting on the other side. You just keep walking, one boundary at a time, until the ground beneath your feet grows soft again. I've stopped expecting thank yous the way I used to. Not because I think people are ungrateful on purpose, but because I've learned that when people are drowning, they rarely notice who's holding the rope, especially if you're doing it quietly, without asking for praise. But just because you didn't get a thank you, don't mean your giving didn't matter. It meant the world, even if they acted like it didn't. When I look back at that moment, handing over the only money I had left to stay in my home, I see it clearer now. It wasn't stupidity. It was love. Courageous, selfless love. And love, when done right, will always cost you something. Sometimes sleep, sometimes pride, sometimes rent. But if you walk it all the way through, sometimes love gives back double, just in a currency you didn't expect. I gave my rent money thinking it might cost me everything, but I gained a woman from it. Brittany became someone else, someone better, not overnight, but steadily, like Grace. That's how transformation works. Messy, slow, but meaningful. Now they call me wise. They say I'm strong for holding the family together, for being the one who can't say no, the one who survives it all. But here's the truth I don't say often. Even strong women need rest. Even providers need provision. And even the ones who never ask for help feel resentment when folks forget that they're still human under all that patience. I used to think boundaries made you hard, but I've since learned that boundaries are the softest kind of self-love. They give you back your breath, your dignity, your power. They keep your couches from becoming confessionals. They save your tea for sipping, not surviving. And you know what? These days, I say no more. I no longer explain it either. I say it with my voice, my silence, and the way my eyes don't bend toward guilt anymore. Because now they understand. I might love you, but I love me enough not to hand over what I can't afford to lose anymore. Brittany's story ain't perfect. Neither is mine. But we've built something beautiful in the ruins. She pays her bills. She teaches other women how to budget. She doesn't run away from hard conversations anymore. And every so often she'll walk into my living room, set down a bag of groceries I didn't ask for, and say, "This is just because I remember." That's all I ever needed. Someone to remember. What I gave, what I risked, what I carried without applause. I made my peace, knowing not everyone would pay me back in dollars. But if the people I poured into start standing up straighter, if they stop seeing me as the answer and start finding their own, if they live fuller lives because I helped them get through one tight season, then I didn't lose money. I made an investment in humanity, and so did you if you've ever given too much to someone who acted like it was owed. That investment doesn't always return on your timeline, but when it does, it'll come back pressed down and overflowing with wisdom, grace, and people who remember. If you're listening to this, and you've got folks pretending they forgot that you helped them stay afloat, let me say this. You are not too soft, you are not too gullible, you are not weak for caring, but you are not a doormat either. And your kindness should never become your curse. You don't have to become heartless to stop being used. You just have to recognize when your giving is becoming self-harm. And then say no with love but firmness. And walk away without carrying the silence they'll try to guilt you with. Welcome to Tales of Ora Mae, a place where the truth don't whisper. It echoes. Because some stories are too important to keep inside. I don't share this so you can feel sorry for me. I share this because you might be sitting on a similar porch, holding an empty wallet and a heavy heart. And I want you to know, you're not alone. You're not crazy. And you're not the problem. Let's talk in the comments. Have you ever helped somebody who forgot how fast you said yes? Subscribe for weekly voiceover stories filled with truth, redemption, and real Southern heart. Because when Ora Mae shares a story, she don't just spill the tea. She serves the lesson too.